Throughout history, humans have faced countless challenges, from personal tragedies to global crises. In these moments of darkness, the wisdom of those who've walked similar paths before us can serve as beacons of hope and guidance. Today, we're exploring powerful quotes that can help navigate life's most difficult seasons, words that have sustained people through wars, depressions, personal losses, and societal upheavals. When we're in the midst of hardship, perspective often becomes our most valuable asset. As Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, observed, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. This profound insight reminds us that while we cannot control all circumstances, we maintain sovereignty over our reactions. Similarly, Corrie ten Boom, who risked her life hiding Jews during World War II, noted, "If you look at the world, you'll be distressed. If you look within, you'll be depressed. But if you look at Christ, you'll be at rest." Her words highlight how our focus determines our emotional state during difficult times. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave, offered this timeless perspective. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This sentiment has been echoed throughout centuries by those who discovered that our interpretation of events often impacts us more than the events themselves. When facing seemingly insurmountable obstacles, quotes about perseverance can provide the mental fortitude needed to continue. Winston Churchill, speaking during the darkest days of World War II, famously said, "If you're going through hell, keep going." This straightforward advice acknowledges both the reality of suffering and the necessity of movement through it. Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison before becoming South Africa's president, reflected, "It always seems impossible until it's done." His life embodied this truth. What appeared to be an endless imprisonment eventually gave way to freedom and transformation. For those feeling overwhelmed by current circumstances, Maya Angelou's words offer perspective. Every storm runs out of rain. This simple yet profound observation reminds us that impermanence applies to difficulties as well as joys. No hardship, however severe, lasts forever. Japanese culture gives us the concept of kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making it more beautiful than before. This practice embodies the philosophy captured by Ernest Hemingway. The world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places. Our wounds, when properly healed, can become sources of unique strength and beauty. When facing failure or setback, Thomas Edison's reflection provides encouragement. "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This reframing transforms perceived failures into necessary steps toward success. Edison's persistence through countless unsuccessful experiments ultimately led to world-changing innovations. Similarly, basketball legend Michael Jordan noted, "I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." His acknowledgement that failure is not merely an acceptable part of the journey, but an essential component of success, offers permission to embrace our missteps. For those struggling with uncertainty about the future, Mahatma Gandhi's simple directive provides a starting point. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Rather than becoming paralyzed by the magnitude of problems, this quote encourages taking personal responsibility for creating positive transformation. Martin Luther King Jr. offered similar wisdom. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. In times of ambiguity, this reminder that complete clarity is rarely available before action becomes necessary can help overcome decision paralysis. When facing criticism or judgment, Theodore Roosevelt's famous "man in the arena" quote provides perspective. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. This powerful passage reminds us that those taking risks and making attempts deserve honor, regardless of outcome, while those merely observing and criticizing from safety contribute little. For those experiencing grief or loss, C.S. Lewis offered this insight after the death of his wife. "No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear." His honest acknowledgement of grief's disorienting nature validates the complex emotions that accompany loss. Queen Elizabeth II similarly observed, "Grief is the price we pay for love." This perspective honors both our pain and what we've lost. When feeling alone in our struggles, Fred Rogers' simple reminder offers comfort. Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. This perspective shift draws our attention to the goodness that often emerges during difficult times, reminding us that compassion persists even in darkness. Helen Keller, who overcame extraordinary challenges as a deafblind person, noted, "Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much." Her life demonstrated how community support enables us to transcend limitations that would be insurmountable in isolation. For those battling anxiety about the future, Corrie ten Boom offered this wisdom. "Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength." This practical insight highlights how anticipatory anxiety robs us of the resources needed to address current challenges. Similarly, the Dalai Lama suggests, if a problem is fixable, if a situation is such that you can do something about it, then there is no need to worry. If it's not fixable, then there is no help in worrying. This logical approach to concern helps distinguish between productive problem-solving and unproductive rumination. When facing seemingly senseless suffering, Viktor Frankl's observation provides a framework for meaning-making. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. His experience in Nazi concentration camps led to this profound understanding that purpose sustains us through unimaginable circumstances. Friedrich Nietzsche expressed a similar sentiment. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. This parallel observation from a different philosophical tradition reinforces the universal importance of purpose in human resilience. For those experiencing failure or rejection, J.K. Rowling's personal story offers perspective. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. Before Harry Potter brought her worldwide success, Rowling faced poverty, divorce, and depression. Her journey illustrates how our lowest points can become the bedrock for future achievements. When struggling with self-doubt, Maya Angelou's words provide encouragement. "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." This powerful declaration distinguishes between being affected by circumstances and being defined by them. For those facing impossible odds, Admiral James Stockdale, who survived 7 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam, offered what became known as the Stockdale paradox. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. This balanced approach acknowledges both hope and hardship without denying either. When confronting personal limitations, Reinhold Niebuhr's Serenity Prayer provides a framework for discernment. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. This widely embraced prayer offers guidance for directing our energy effectively during challenging times. For those experiencing shame or regret, Brené Brown's research-based insight offers a path forward. Shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. Her work highlights how self-compassion, rather than self-criticism, creates the conditions necessary for growth and transformation. When facing overwhelming circumstances, Mother Teresa's approach provides practical wisdom. "I never look at the masses as my responsibility. I look at the individual. I can love only one person at a time." Her focus on manageable action rather than paralyzing magnitude offers a template for addressing seemingly insurmountable problems. For those experiencing betrayal or injustice, Nelson Mandela's perspective after his imprisonment demonstrates extraordinary magnanimity. "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." His words highlight how forgiveness liberates the forgiver more than the forgiven. When struggling with comparison or envy, Theodore Roosevelt offered this insight: "Comparison is the thief of joy." This simple observation identifies how measuring our circumstances against others often undermines our capacity for gratitude and contentment. For those facing physical suffering or illness, Frida Kahlo, who endured lifelong pain following a bus accident, reflected, "At the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can. Her life and art demonstrated how creativity can transform suffering into meaning and beauty. When experiencing professional or creative setbacks, Thomas Edison's perspective provides encouragement. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. This observation highlights the often invisible proximity between persistent effort and breakthrough. For those navigating major life transitions, Joseph Campbell noted, "We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us." This wisdom acknowledges both the grief of relinquishing expectations and the possibility of discovering unanticipated gifts. When facing societal or systemic challenges, anthropologist Margaret Mead offered hope. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Her observation, based on studying cultures worldwide, reminds us that significant transformation often begins with seemingly insignificant actions. For those experiencing spiritual darkness or doubt, Mother Teresa's private journals revealed her own struggle. "Where is my faith? Even deep down, there is nothing but emptiness and darkness. If there be God, please forgive me." Her honesty about spiritual desolation while continuing her work offers permission to persist through periods of uncertainty. When facing environmental or global crises, Wendell Berry provides this grounding perspective. The earth is what we all have in common. This simple observation highlights our shared stake in addressing collective challenges, transcending political and ideological divisions. For those struggling with perfectionism, Anne Lamott offers this liberating advice. "Perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of the people. It will keep you cramped and insane your whole life." Her permission to embrace imperfection creates space for authentic action and growth. When experiencing burnout or exhaustion, Audre Lorde's observation provides essential wisdom. "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." Her recognition that rest and renewal are necessary rather than optional, particularly for those engaged in difficult work, offers permission for sustainable engagement. For those facing discrimination or prejudice, James Baldwin's insight offers perspective. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. His unflinching examination of American racism demonstrates how honest acknowledgement precedes meaningful transformation. When navigating complex ethical dilemmas, Desmond Tutu provides guidance. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. His leadership during South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission embodied this commitment to moral clarity without vengeance. For those experiencing loneliness or isolation, C.S. Lewis offers this reflection. "Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, 'What, you too? I thought I was the only one.'" His observation highlights how vulnerability and shared experience create connection, transforming individual suffering into communal support. When facing addiction or destructive patterns, Carl Jung noted, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." His psychological insight illuminates how awareness precedes transformation, offering hope for breaking cycles that seem predetermined. For those navigating family conflict or estrangement, Fred Rogers provides this perspective. "In times of stress, the best thing we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and our hearts, and to be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers." His emphasis on presence and validation offers a foundation for healing divided relationships. When experiencing creative blocks or stagnation, Elizabeth Gilbert suggests, "Done is better than perfect." This practical advice counters the paralysis of perfectionism, encouraging forward movement despite imperfection. For those facing financial hardship or economic uncertainty, Suze Orman offers this grounding perspective. "When you understand that your self-worth is not determined by your net worth, then you'll have financial freedom." Her distinction between financial circumstances and intrinsic value provides emotional resilience during material challenges. When confronting mortality, our own or others, Randy Pausch, who delivered his last lecture while dying of pancreatic cancer, observed, "We cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play the hand." His focus on agency within constraints demonstrates how meaning persists even in life's final chapter. These quotes, spanning centuries and cultures, remind us that difficulty is a universal human experience. While our specific challenges differ, the wisdom gained through adversity transcends time and circumstance. As we navigate our own hard times, these words offer not just comfort, but practical guidance for moving through suffering with dignity, purpose, and even growth. Perhaps most importantly, they remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. Countless others have walked similar paths and found their way through. Their words reach across time to offer us companionship in our darkest moments, reminding us that while suffering is inevitable, so too is the human capacity for resilience, meaning-making, and hope. As we conclude, I'll leave you with one final quote from Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, whose insights on suffering remain unparalleled. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. May we all find the wisdom to exercise this ultimate freedom, regardless of what challenges we face.